Do you have any tips for like string players who want to get better at singing? I'm just asking for a friend, honestly, because there is something so visceral about the human voice.
Boom.
And your human voice that you have is you're the only one with it. You get farther away from being a commodity as a instrumental group. You get more into the monopoly territory where you're unreplicatable. So do you have any like tips for like string players who are like, trying to get into singing, but what did you guys do? Or
but you just said monopoly. We're not going to give away our secrets, bro. I don't know what kind of alley-oop you're talking about. I'm kidding.
Dude, I'm trying to break the backboard, man. I'm trying to
shatter
it. Check it.
Yeah. Hotel on Park Place. Hotel on Park Place. Right.
Well, here's the deal. One thing that I've found is you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can show them the path. You can't make them walk the path. So by highlighting the path that you guys are walking, it can give people ideas. But they still, at the end of the day, have to have discipline to execute. And most people don't. So I wouldn't try it.
I'm going to just dive in before you say something because you've been singing and playing and it's so effortless. But I just, I think about that 10-year-old self and what, I would tell that kid if he would listen. And
he's hopped up on Jolly Ranchers and vibrating.
Yeah. And I, if he's willing to listen, I'd say, everything you do it well, do it creatively, search, and don't be surprised if it comes back around. And, I sang up until Mother Nature stripped me of my voice.
She's such a bitch. Jesus.
And I had to find another avatar, to express myself, which for me, was the double bass.
You play double bass?
Oh man. Yeah. It's group called Time for Three.
It's on VHS.
We have the sound effect producer David.
Yeah, and so I the only time the singing broke back out was when I was in the practice room and I wanted to like really live in a phrase.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, I'm not playing this right. How would I sing it?
Right.
And then I sing the 4 measure, the 8 measure phrase, whatever. And then, all of a sudden, like I'm more connected to it when I go back to playing it on my instrument. So, there's some musicians that don't even want to do that. Like they're like, no, I'm not singing, definitely not in public. That's no way. But then there's like another layer of musicians that like are at least willing to bravely, share their vocals to themselves so they can find it, or maybe even at like what they call like a workshop or a class in front of instruments, like themselves, the person who's running the class will say, would you mind singing this phrase? And you have the different personality types, right? You have the one person who's just like, no, please don't make me do that. Mm-hmm. I'd rather not. And then you have the other one who's like, all right, sure. And they bust it out. It's a little out of tune, whatever. But, they can kind of find it on their instrument. And then all of a sudden, sometimes you find that person that just like blows your mind. Like, actually, maybe you should switch to singing. That's how good you are. So it's just, I think it's like there's some of it that just takes courage and the willingness to try it. And so when I came full circle back playing, bass and singing with Time for Three, when Charles joined the group and we wanted to sing together because we knew that he had this beautiful voice and Nick and I wanted to, try to, add to that. It was like a very fumbling experience initially, like playing and singing was just like cumbersome. It didn't work out. We had to like slow things way down. We had to, sometimes change some of the voicings in the instrument compared to, it's a real quest, and like the first song that we put together in those harmonies were tricky, it was hard stuff. But then, the more we did it, just like anything, by the time we got to like our 4th song, it's like, wow, this is working out. Like we could do this almost on the spot now. And now, our 3 voices now have 6 voices, within the band. And it really kind of widened the scope. Just, take away like, whatever pop songs or singer songwriter or rock or, all that stuff that is kind of like really accessible. We were twice as big all of a sudden.
Yeah, you doubled our size.
We doubled our size texturally. And also, I just want to say like on a cerebral level, singing and playing the instrument opens up a whole other paradise, you know, as a musician. It's another world, you know, like it's almost like, okay, you play classical and then you like explore jazz and then maybe like some Latin music, whatever. And it's like, oh man, it's so fun to just kind of try something a little new. And that helps your, whatever your so-called discipline is. Well, it's the same thing when you go to the singing, like adding the singing into your DNA. Like now all of a sudden it again, it's connecting in a different way with yourself. And so there's this like, you know, there's really this spiritual existence, like from my perspective, when you're adding the vocals into your playing. So I think just like anything, for those who want to start to sing, don't let that, you know, hang you up if you go to it and you're not a, like, you know, a so-called a great singer with, you know, right away. Like it just like anything else that you could build.
It takes, Paige, I remember when we were doing that, I realized that in my head, I have such a standard for how I want to feel when I play my instrument or play music, because I'm, you know, I've trained through this really difficult, like, you know, classical music is not, you can't, you know, to play Mozart in a convincing way, you have to study it. Bach, Brahms, all this stuff takes so much work. And so that was the standard that I have for my singing. It's like, you know, I suck, but you can't do that. And I had to start super, super simple, like just playing open D string and then singing a third above that.
Gregorian chant. Well, that's
Gregorian chant. Or
No thirds though.
No
no,
thirds.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Get
no,
out
no,
of
no.
here with that.
No.
Fifths, baby.
Come
No,
on.
I'm walking off. I'm walking off.
Heathen. Just
So like if there are like string quartets out there or instrumental groups, one thing you can start doing is actually just sing. You can improvise on a scale, or you can actually take Bach chorales and don't do the words. Just sing oohs and just experience what it feels like when you're using a different expression of music making.
It's an expression. That's the exact
Yeah.
word. It's just an express. That's the most natural form of expression before any instruments, right? All these instruments that we play, it's just so that we can get more voicings in. I mean, this was the original. This was it. So, I mean, none of us trained, you know, singing. I never thought about singing. Like Nick was saying, I think a lot of people think that, well, I've trained so hard on this, but I've never trained this, so they shouldn't go together. I don't think that's the thing. I think for me, it's always been, if I can sing it, then I can play it. If I can play it and I can't sing it, then I'm not getting it right. The phrasing is not natural. It doesn't feel right to me.
Can you sing the Tarantella?
Yeah.
So nerdy, dude.
Yeah, that's real nerdy. But hey, but it's just it's getting over that fear, not thinking too hard about it, you know. And like these exercises, really an amazing exercise to do is to really get to know your instrument and your voice. Right? Play a scale in unison, sing and play that scale in complete unison. Then improvise things on your instrument and see if you can sing the same exact thing, you know, kind of Simon Says, or together. You know, these kind of exercises will just, first of all, get to know your instrument way better. And also your voice, you know, you'll know exactly where to go.
And it's not, and you'll find that the goal should be not comparing yourself to another singer or like a product of another band, like, you know, what we do. It's literally about what feelings or what colors and what other directions can you discover through this other element that then allows you to find a sincere way of connecting with the music and then maybe audiences on your own terms. But literally, it's like so many times in classical music with, again, all the training, the hardest thing for musicians to do is to leap off the cliff because they feel like, you know, they'd rather like stay on the cliff's edge. But as soon as you stretch, it's still music making. It's just another way of expressing.
Yeah.
You'll then find new pockets of vibe and feeling by forcing yourself to, you know, not just to express yourself with something that we've been playing millions and millions of hours on repeat that we know. It opens up so many new avenues.